it's also a vulnerable position, right? And being committed to answering the 100 questions, as an example, it says that I have to be willing to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Right. In order to be committed towards a relationship. Right.
Right.
Otherwise, then, we talk about the good and we kiki and haha about the good. But then, put the, bad and ugly under the rug. And then when it actually comes up from under the rug, that's where, as Daa'Iyah says, who's this person?
Right.
That's what the point, my niece is about to get married. And I told her one piece of advice I gave her is that you have to have the hard conversations. And I think that's what keeps us where we are now, because we have the hard conversations, even when we don't feel like it.
Hello and welcome to the Oasis Space, where we disrupt your current chaos with curated peace. I am your host, Patrice Grimes, also known as the Peace Curator, and I am super, super ecstatic that you have taken this step to join us for another episode of the Oasis Space. To all of my loyal peace pursuits, I am so grateful and honored that you all tune in every single week. And if this is your first time, you hear the terminology peace pursuits, and that is what our community calls ourselves here. We are peace pursuits, and it is an acronym for peace. That means being able to pivot even as chaos ensues. And so if you are just now tuning in, we believe that when you pivot, even as chaos ensues, it empowers you to transform that conflict into peace, and so that you can particularly just live a more peaceful life as it relates to your profession and personal relationships. And so those are the areas that I find are most disruptive to people, are the ones that they mostly acknowledge. And so we go through various topics to discuss how to really pivot in these types of situations when that conflict or chaos disrupts in our lives. I believe that there is a specific framework that you should take as you work to embody peace, so that it's not something that is fleeting. It's not something that is conditional based on the situations that are occurring in your life, but it's something that you truly embody, that you truly breathe and understand, and that becomes your very being as peace pursuits. And so if you're here, someone obviously told you about it, you Google searched it, whatever, but I applaud you for taking the step to acknowledge, hey, I want to embody peace in my life. I want to learn of different perspectives so that it changes my mindset and that I can default to peace instead of being conflicted. And so just like any other episodes we have, I typically provide some personal insight, or I'll bring guests on that I think are qualified to speak to this topic, that I know is going to provide you some valuable insight into the topics that we're discussing. And so again, this episode is like no other, and I have guests Ralph and Daa'Iyah Plaskett in the Oasis Space today. I am so excited because they are our first guest in this podcast series. And so, or excuse me, not our first guest, but our first couple. And so I'm so excited because they are literally one of my favorite couples. And I realized, and I wanted them to come on because as you are going through relationships, one of the things that I hear amongst friends and other people that I'm speaking to is how challenging when you're going through the process of healing and growing and evolving, just how challenging it can be to transition from those toxic, unhealthy relationships that you maybe used to have into entering in maybe one of your first healthy relationships. You notice how the triggers come up in the second guessing and things like that. And I thought, Ralph and Daa'Iyah would be an amazing resource to bring on the podcast to share some insight with you all. So just a little bit about Ralph and Daa'Iyah. They have been married for 12 years and are the proud parents of two beautiful children, where they currently reside in Raleigh, North Carolina. Although marriage has been pretty blissful for them, they recognize early how challenging it can be to transition toxic to healthy relationships and decided they would start with asking and responding to the tough questions sooner if they were going to yield different results. Through their relationship, they have learned to navigate their differences in communication styles so they can reach the optimal solution when conflict arises, and they can both obtain peace to live happy and healthy lives. So, listen, I'm really, really excited about this one, guys. I know it is going to provide you with some incredible insight. So make sure you pull out your notepads now so you can take some notes, or just go back and listen to it again. I think it's going to be some gems in there that's going to require you to listen more than once. And so again, I do not want to delay the goodness of this episode any longer. So I'd like to welcome you all into the Oasis space with Ralph and Daa'Iyah Plaskett. Okay, welcome back. We are here with another episode of the Oasis Space. And let me tell y'all, this is one of my favorite couples in the entire world. This couple here has been married for 12 years. And, you know, as we talk about the topics on transforming conflict into peace, particularly in our personal relationships, I thought this was a topic that does not exhaust itself. It doesn't get old. As we talk about, you know, overall embodying peace and our relationships and professions, things like that, one thing that comes up is realizing when we've been in toxic relationships, how difficult it can be to transition to these healthy relationships. And we want to talk about that today. And like I said, these people here, they got some years in the game. I figured they were qualified to talk about it. So I'm so excited. Welcome, Ralph and Daa'Iyah Plaskett. Welcome to the Oasis Space, y'all.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So let's get into it, right? Y'all have been married now for 12 years, but let's just start at the beginning of this beautiful story. How did y'all meet? Let's just start there.
Whose version? The truth?
What they say though, there's always three sides to a story.
Truth or his version?
So you're suggesting that my version is the truth?
Okay, go ahead. We met as, I guess, cliche as it sounds, we met at church.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we met at church.
And yeah,
I wasn't interested.
Okay, so let me just tell the story, because you're trying not to tell the full story, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
We keep it real here in Oasis Space, so don't.
Right, that's exactly what we're going to do. So she's absolutely right. We met at church.
Okay.
Right. And, you know, neither of us were in a space at a time. We weren't really looking for someone and we weren't interested in each other.
Okay.
But as time went on, you know, I started to notice someone there at church, and I said, you know what, you know, she seems like a beautiful young lady. I should try to figure out, you know, who she is, what's her name, you know, and kind of get to know her better.
Right.
So I started my pursuit, and in my pursuit, she decided that she was not interested, and she decided to run. Literally, it was a gray Jeep Cherokee that she jumped into. And
you about she a runner, she a track star, like she
right, exactly. But somehow, I believe the word was persistence. Persistence prevailed. All right, I'm going to use all these P's here. Persistence prevailed, and I was able to get a date, right? First, I was just trying to get a coffee date, right? I didn't know how much I was trying to contribute into this.
Tell the people this, though. Do you drink coffee? Did you drink coffee?
At the time, I did not drink coffee. But I also know that I wasn't trying to, how would I put it now? I guess invest.
He wasn't trying to invest too much.
Okay, I was going cheap. I just want to see where it was going to go. I mean, you were already running away from
conversation.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to have adult conversation over adult beverages that were not,
and save your adult money.
And save my adult money. Right. Exactly. But long story short, you know, she fell for the smile and a bit of the accent. And that was what
Oh, if y'all could see them roll, like you could see Daa'Iyah rolling her eyes right now, and she lying, y'all, because I was there. What y'all don't know, the plot twist is I was there. So I'm going to be the one to cut through this part of the story to say, yep, that was right.
He did not have an accent. He masked his accent for like the first 2 or 3 dates. And I was like, why are you doing that? Like, that makes no sense to me. He said, because people stateside always say, huh? When they're talking to what? And he didn't want to go through that. And I'm like, don't do that.
Yeah.
But then,
Okay. Well, let's put it all out there then.
then the reason why I did not want, and I'm sure Patrice will get into this. This is her podcast.
You're right. You're right.
But the reason I was not interested in the date is because we went to the same church, and I was like, if this does not work out, one of us gonna have to leave the church, and it wasn't gonna be me. So that's why I was like, I'm not leaving, and I don't want to look in your face every day. So it didn't work out.
So you was already looking ahead of time, like if this don't work out, I'm not leaving my place of worship. Like you guess you're gonna have to be the one to go.
Pretty much, and I was there first.
You call first dibs.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously y'all went on the date. It went well, I guess, to be expected. You went on another one, right?
Well, she didn't really give me a choice, Patrice. Right? She didn't give me a choice, right? First of all, we were late in the date. Let's lay it all out there. And I came, I was punctual.
Okay.
Right? So I pulled up to the house, ready to go. But no, she was getting her hair done. And, I guess she wanted it to be just right for me. I appreciate that.
That's important.
Right. But we had reservations. and we blew our reservations by an hour. Right. So
you on a coffee date the first time.
Right. So we never made it to a coffee date. Right. and this is probably why I should have, stuck with a coffee thing. Right. But no, I went to say, I'm going to do adult dating. And I decided that we're going to have reservations. I had a whole night scheduled. It was beautiful.
Okay. Oh.
But we missed our reservations. It was a nice restaurant that we were going to go to and enjoy good conversation. We ended up in a crappy restaurant where
they messed up a salad.
How do you mess up a salad? I have no idea. But they messed up a salad. Right. It didn't help that I had allergies and, it was that much worse.
Yeah.
But, it didn't help that she was joning on me like I was Carlton because I layered my clothes. It was wintertime. I layered my clothes so I didn't have to take off my jacket, on my jacket, off my jacket. No, it didn't help that, because I had allergies, I couldn't really smell. So, I just put in a new air freshener in the ride. And, she was like, oh, man, are you wearing a whole lot of cologne? And this air freshener is really, really rough. No, none of those things, right? So this is where I say,
Sarah, what made you stay? Like, right. You got through all this on the first day?
Right, this is the first date, right?
For real.
I barely knew her middle name. In fact, she didn't even know how to middle name. So the night went on and, we went from, the other places in the agenda. And we finally got to our last place, which was a jazz spot. And it was pretty good music. It was loud music. It was a little difficult for conversation. If I think hindsight is probably not the best place for conversation.
Yeah.
But in that, she didn't give me a choice. And this is what I mean that she didn't give me a choice, right? She asked me 100 questions, literally. And they weren't what's your favorite color questions, right? They weren't that surface level questions.
Yeah.
They were the deep ones to assess in the first date if we're going to actually have a second date. And if this is going to be worth time. So in that, I made the commitment that I was going to be open, honest, and answer all of the questions, regardless of where this thing might go.
Time is valuable.
It is. So when you say, though, like you were asking all of these questions, I mean, at any point, Ralph, you said you were going to be open and honest, but at any point, did you feel any of the questions were evasive to the point of, this is too much to be asking me on a first date, or what is really her motive of asking me these questions? Or did you have the mindset that, no, I understand she's asking these questions to see if this is really even worth her time or my time?
Yes, to both questions, right?
Okay.
They were, in each question, I really had to kind of judge how I wanted to respond, right? Was I going to be honest and open and how transparent I was going to be? Or was I going to lie? Right? Was I? Yeah, just flat out lie. Well, was I going to lie to kind of save face and try to see, if lying would allow me to get to the second date or wherever else it may have gone? I had to make those judgment calls in each of the 100 questions over, cranberry juice without the vodka.
Now, so did you told the truth on all of the 100 questions?
I told the truth on all the 100 questions.
Wow, that's admirable.
Well, here's the thing, right? I put on the I just don't give a and just went for it because this was literally the first date. So I didn't have emotions invested in this. I didn't have, anything invested in it. So I figured, let me go give it all. And if this works, then there's nothing for me to kind of put out there because she knows everything now. And, let's just see how it goes.
Yeah. Like nothing to lose. I got you.
I didn't send my representative on the first date.
You said you did not?
I did not. I showed up. I didn't send a representative. I showed up on the first date. And so you know what you're dealing with.
Right.
So 3 months down the line, there's not an adjustment period because, this isn't how she was when I met her.
Right.
No, this is what you're going to get.
Now, but let's talk about that, Daa'Iyah, because I think that sounds great, right? But not everybody gets to that point right away. Not everybody is going to just be like, oh, what you see is what you get, right? A lot of people in the initial dating phase goes through that representative honeymoon period. Everyone wants to be on their best behavior. They want to appear to be favorable. And it's not from a phony perspective, but it's like, even if you are honest, right? You may be honest in your answer, but you may not give the full part of the answer. Or, there's still, I think, for most people, a level of protection. Like, I mean, I'm just meeting you, and it's a level, a degree of trust that you have to build to get all of me or what this is, right? So when you say, hey, I ain't send no representative, what you got see is what you get, that's not come for everyone. So I think for me, is that your normal personality, or had you done some work?
A little bit of both. So I think the people who introduced him to the church, I knew that I could trust what they said about him. In that I didn't go into the first date completely blind. I knew he wasn't like a shady dude or irresponsible dude based on the conversation I had with the couple that I guess introduced us.
Okay.
And I knew he was mature, very mature. So I felt like I could have grown-up conversation. I also felt like I had been through something before where I did not want to waste my time. So let me not waste my time. I mean, obviously I wasn't in there acting like, okay, he's known me forever and shoes off and that kind of thing.
Right.
But I also wasn't going to hold back on the things I needed to know to determine if I wanted to move forward. And if that meant it seemed like I was being invasive, if he had to say this is too much, I wouldn't have been offended by it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is too much for the first date. And I do agree, everybody's not there, but I also don't agree in shocking people either.
Right.
Like somebody think they got one person, and then 3 months later, here's somebody totally different. That's not fair to either party. So I wanted him. He could say from day one, I talk a lot, and I'm going to pretty much say what I'm feeling, or my face will show it.
Right.
And that's exactly what he got on the first date.
And so to your point, right, like, and I agree, I don't think we should be a representative and then show up as someone else 3 months later, 6 months later, whatever it is, when the quote, title changes. I think for me, though, what I particularly wanted to harp in on is because, again, I think there are people in that space now and they're wondering, well, how do I even get to the point of feeling comfortable to say, like, look, I done been through enough. I'm not wasting my time. What you see is what you get. And so I guess I wonder for you, like you had experiences, you said that I'd already felt like I had wasted my time before. I knew what I wanted at that point. So had you, before deciding to go out with Ralph, and I guess this can be a question for both of you, but had you all been dating before that so you could kind of figure out what you wanted, or what were some of the steps you took to get to the point of, with this next relationship, I'm not wasting time. What you see is what you get type thing.
I think for me, so I had some doozies. So to just go back a little bit.
Did you say I had some doozies?
Yes. I had some doozies. So I was married previously.
Okay.
Divorced when I met him. And I had been single at that point for almost 4 years,
4
I
years.
think.
Yep.
Something like that. So I was single for 4 years after my divorce. And that's where the doozies came along. Because when you're single, everybody thinks you want them to hook you up with somebody. So hook you up. They try and hook you up with the guy who says, "Oh, me and my wife separated. We're really not together, but I can take you out." Or the dude who really not doing anything, but he want to take you out, and that's just not what you want. It was just a whole bunch of doozies, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And whenever I would go on a date, I didn't allow anybody to pick me up from my house. Like, I would meet you because I lived alone. With him, which is why I say it started different, he picked me up at my place, which was already the different thing. But he also didn't give me the option. It was like, his approach was like, okay, so I'll pick you up at this time. And I was like, oh, okay. But I also knew that if something happened to me, I could reach out.
You had a backup plan because
somebody know how to find him.
Right. Okay.
So that kind of made me, and I knew I could trust the folks that introduced us. Like if something happened, he was gonna find him.
Right.
That I knew. So that kind of made me more comfortable. I also felt like in my unhealthy relationship, I was this might be a shocker, like passive in a way for the sake of peace and not as aggressive as I probably should have been. And I didn't want that again. I wasn't always vocal about what mattered to me. Yeah. I wasn't timid, but I wanted peace. So I didn't do things that would cause confrontation most of the time. So I knew that any relationship going forward, that's not what I wanted to be.
You wanted to be forthcoming, not aggressive.
Yeah.
Right. You said aggressive, right? I just don't want anybody to think I getting beat over the back and brow, behind closed doors.
She was not advocating.
It's gonna be a problem.
I understood what you were saying though, sis. You basically was not advocating for the things you needed in the relationship at the time. So then with the new, you felt like I need to be more vocal about what I like, what I don't like, what I need,
and I try to, from that period in my life, I tried to make that my thing, even in friendships. Like I know what I don't want in a friendship based on other past friendships. Right. So that's how I try to move forward. And if that's not what I'm getting, then this is not the gig for me.
Right. Right.
So, I don't want to be asking all questions and stuff like that, right? But I think because I know your story, right? Because I'm your husband. You, in that 4 years of your singleness, you did spend some time reflecting on who you are and what you want and defining some things in your life. Can you speak to that?
That's what I kind of just said.
Not really what you said, but I want you to draw it out some more because there's some nuggets there.
I think there will be some nuggets too, right? Because again, right, I think so. And I'll say this, Daa'Iyah, just because you're the first one that responded. But oftentimes we get to this place of being, quote, healed, right? Or we know what the things we want and we forget what it was like to not have it together, right? So during that 4-year period, you was dating the doozies. And I'm sure there were some that might have looked appealing initially, right? And so I think it's those situations where you go out with the doozy dudes and you thinking things are okay based off of how they show up initially, right? And you have those instances where maybe, can I really trust this person? Can I trust myself with this person? Can I trust myself to make the right decision in another relationship, right? And I think those are even some of the unhealthy thoughts we go through in those processes because you're just like, I was not in the best relationship before, so can I even trust myself to make another good decision? Like that's sometimes part of it, of just trusting yourself again, or what it may look like if somebody may be okay and you kind of just pull back. So I think it's talking about some of those periods as well when you were identifying what you like and didn't like. Would be helpful to know about.
I think for me, it wasn't. I can honestly say I didn't feel like I wouldn't be able to trust myself with a decision. I felt like maybe initially on the surface, like, is this really you? But once I make a decision to trust you, then I felt like I could trust that decision. Because I don't feel like from my past relationships that I'm trying to figure out how the nice way to say this. I don't feel like it was a situation where you then showed me somebody different and I was shocked by it. I think a lot of it was being young and then doing things out of comfort. So as I got older and more mature, I realized, okay, I know what I want was, I guess, not normal or healthy.
Right.
And those are the things I'm looking for. I spent the time, I didn't start dating immediately after my divorce. So that was the thing. I worked on myself.
Okay.
That meant I immersed myself a lot in church stuff, work stuff, and then myself. I have some friends who were like, they would never go out by themselves. I had to go out all the time by myself. The Red Lobster on Princeton Parkway used to see me a lot on my way home from work because I'd stop, get some food. I sat at the bar when I didn't even drink, but I got to know myself, which gave me the strength to be able to speak up for myself. So I spent a lot of time with me.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was good, healthy time, which is, I would say, was probably about 2 years later when I started with the doozy. But it was a laughable period, I guess.
They make for good stories. I say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just it paved the way for me, right? And it made it really easy for me to come in there and be like, hey.
Right.
I don't know that you had it easy now.
No. I guess I should rephrase it because I did not have it easy as described by the first date and you joining on me from jump. I think from my response to that question, Therese, is so I guess I'll consider myself a bit of an oddball where the way that I treat people or the way that I engage with folks is I'm going to meet you or I treat you or I meet you at 100, right? I don't know you, so I have no reason to not trust you, to not like you, to not respect you, none of those things. So I start at 100. And in my engagement with you, in my conversations with you, you either maintain 100 or I start chopping you down, right? So from that sense is where, I went into the relationship and I said, you know what, I'm going to trust her. I'm going to enjoy the conversations with her. I'm going to respect her. I'm going to do everything because I have no reason not to. And, from there, we'll see where it goes. So in addition to that framing, as well as, I've had some past relationships as well. They went well, but, they weren't obviously went well enough because, we ended them.
Right.
I was committed to making a relationship work. Right. And as I explored my past relationships, so commitment being the thing that, stands out here.
Yeah.
And I was committed to working on the relationship, understanding that no relationship is easy or perfect or anything. But I was committed to say, I'm going to put the work into, to make it what I think is best. And certainly as we come together in a relationship, what we think is best.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really important, right? Because for you, like it wasn't, you had relationships that ended that went well, you say. It wasn't that they were so completely horrible, horrific. They went well, but obviously not well enough, like you say, brought you to Daa'Iyah. But there was something that switched in you that made you say, I really want to be committed to making the next relationship work. I mean, of course, not excusing behaviors that would not have been agreeable to your values or morals and things like that. But there was something that shifted in you that obviously said, okay, but I have to do something different. Even though I think I've been showing up as 100 before, right? As something else I got to do to make this next one work. So, and I think that's important. It's a mindset shift. It's a conscious decision to say, I'm going to put in the work to make sure this relationship works. and how it evolves is how we will discuss how the relationship evolves within itself, which I think is amazing. Now,
It's also a vulnerable position, right? And being committed to answering the 100 questions, as an example, it says that I have to be willing to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Right. In order to be committed towards a relationship. Right.
Right.
Otherwise, then, we talk about the good and we kiki and haha about the good. But then, put the, bad and ugly under the rug. And then when it actually comes up from under the rug, that's where, as Daa'Iyah says, who's this person?
Right.
That's the point. My niece is about to get married. And I told her one piece of advice I gave her is that you have to have the hard conversations. And I think that's what keeps us where we are now, because we have the hard conversations. Even when we don't feel like it, we have them. Everything is not always happy, but I've never had a moment where I felt like, okay, why did I marry him?
Right.
But we have the hard conversations. So I figured it's a win-win. Start the hard conversations early.
Start them early. Get them.
You can keep going with it.
And it was this now for Ralph, for you, was this something like this? Was this the first time you had taken that approach, or that someone had asked you the hard questions off the top and you were willing to actually answer them? Because I'm sure in your relationships, there are some hard conversations that come up, right? But you was getting hit with them kind of off the top.
Yeah, I was getting hit with them off the top. Never had I ever had an experience where those hard conversations came off, day one, literally.
Yeah.
You sure it wasn't day two?
It was not day two, it was day one, right? I was just trying to get to day two. My previous relationships, I seem to recall that we had hard conversations, difficult conversations. I don't think they went well. I think we avoided them, and that's both sides of the equation, both parties. And certainly, on our day one, our first date, our day one of knowing each other, that was part of my commitment. And just being open and honest and be where it is, right?
Right.
I mean, just to give an example, right? I'll put it all out there. One of the conversations, one of the questions was, if I cheated before, right, in a relationship. Right. So in that moment, I had to think, she don't know me. She don't know anybody I know.
Right.
I could easily say, no, that never happened. But I said, you know what? Nah, there is nothing to lose here. But everything to gain. So I've been honest. Yeah, I did. All right. And so then, of course, it's not like, okay, let's move on to the next question, right?
Right.
Now you're digging into deep. Okay, so how did it happen? Why did it happen? Blah, 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 blah. So she gave me the full, when I say 100, that's the 100 surface questions, not the other 100 deep questions. But it's to that point, right? Being vulnerable about towards your commitments, being vulnerable towards your commitments. And in doing so, recognizing what could be on the other side of it.
Right. Now, Daa'Iyah, when specifically with this question, right, when you ask that question of have you ever cheated before, when you ask that question, because again, I can imagine someone is listening to this and be like, ooh, would I even, if a female or male is having this conversation with someone, do I even want to know the answer? Because this might bring up a trigger for me or whatever. But what was your intention? Did you have an expectation of how he should respond to that question that you felt would have been?
No, I think whatever we were talking about kind of led me there. I didn't have an expectation, and I didn't have a deal breaker for it. Like no answer was, if he had said, oh, I did blah, 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 that was going to be a deal breaker. It was kind of like a conversation piece. And you know me too, Patrice, well enough to know I go on, like, and I get deeper with questioning and answer. I get intimate, I guess is my thing. So whatever we were talking about led there. And I wasn't bothered. I never considered his answer to be a problem for me. I never considered, he's admitted that he cheated in a previous relationship. This is something I may need to be concerned about.
Right.
I wasn't. It was what it was at the time we talked about it. And I always knew that wherever this goes, we're going to talk about whatever. So that's never been something I ever thought about after that. Oh, he said, this is how this happened. So do I need to be concerned if he's hanging out with this person kind of thing?
Right.
Never thought about it. It was just what it was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody had their deal breakers, but for me, that wasn't one. He was what, 24 at the time?
I don't remember.
24, 25, something like that. But I can't hold you for what you did. Now, if you're a habitual cheater, that's something different, and you admitted to it. That's
right.
Different. But, no, I had his answer wasn't going to determine anything. It just gave me, I just asked.
Okay.
Some of it I'm just nosy, but I just
So, okay. Now when we talk about y'all, obviously y'all started off on a good track. Y'all were both, you wanted to ask the hard questions. You were ready to answer the hard questions. And it sounds like you both were on the same page. So you continue dating, you obviously get married. And I don't know if any of this came up in the dating period or just more so in the marriage period. But I do believe sometimes even in the healthiest relationships, we have things that are like just emotional triggers for us and we got to kind of check ourselves, right? So for you, did you see any of that show up in y'all dating period or whatever before you were even married?
I don't know what would trigger this. I used to hate if we're having I'm hyped. Sometimes I get a little bit louder than I probably should be. And most of the times I'm raspy, so I feel like I gotta speak up.
Mm-hmm.
So he would say, calm down. I'm like, cool yourself. It irritated me, and a part of me felt like he was trying to tell me what to do.
Mm.
And I guess that's a trigger from feeling like I wasn't speaking up enough before. So I would be like, don't tell me to calm down. Like, don't tell me that. I mean, this is like the first one, like 2 years.
Oh yeah, I mean this was all over the place, right?
I hated it. Like I felt like I was triggered, not speaking up. Like, and I'm speaking up, and now I'm having somebody telling me to. In my mind, it was kind of like the equivalent of shut up,
right?
Quiet. And he wasn't. That's just his way of being like, okay, no big deal, just relax. So I hated that. We kind of worked it out. I guess I don't really.
Yeah, and so I guess that's what I was gonna say. Well, at what point did you realize, like, oh, this is kind of a problem for me because I realized this is not what he means by it, but it's my own kind of internal thing that I'm dealing with because I know I used to not speak up for myself. So I'm gonna speak now. Ain't nobody gonna silence me, right? So when did you come to the reckoning of, I guess, realizing like this is not what this man means. I gotta check myself before.
I feel like it was probably at least about almost 2 years. The first 2 years when I realized he really doesn't mean that. There's still some moments where, depending on what we're discussing, if he tells me to calm down, I'm like, no, I'm not, or I don't want to calm down.
Right.
But then I know that's not what he means. And then he has this thing where it could be a serious issue, and he's like, calm down, and I'm irritated. He'll just start laughing. Like, what is funny? And he said that's what he did that's what he would do. Kind of like, I guess, like a nervous laugh or whatever. But like, I'm not laughing. So why are you laughing? Because then, once again, I'm looking at this as you're not taking me serious.
Right.
And I've gotten a little bit better. I walk away kind of, sort of, from it now to realize, okay, let me get myself together, because if I respond to it, my response isn't going to be good. And I don't want that, knowing that's not how he means it.
So I think, so for what we have realized, and I think it was our Charleston anniversary. What was that? Year 3 or 4. We went for our anniversary, we went to Charleston, South Carolina. And I recall, we had an excursion planned. We were supposed to go to the boat. I read maps well. Daa'Iyah doesn't read it very well. So, we're coming out the store. I pull up the Google Maps. I'm trying to get us to the boat on time. We got to rush. So, I make the decision, right, to, go left, right? And we're going left, and left turns out to be the opposite direction of the water.
But I said.
But yes, that's right. But Daa'Iyah said, no, we should go right. Right. But my background was that she has
She knows
She
where's
can't.
the maps, right?
So why am I listening to
Why
her,
would I
right?
listen to you?
Right, right. So it turns out I was wrong, right? And that caused a blow up in the argument, because this is what I'm basing my stuff off. She's not being heard. I'm frustrated that she's frustrated for justified reasons to go left instead of right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 100 degrees.
And it's 100 degrees, and we're running late. And, it was a bad situation, right? And that's, for at least in my mind, that's where I recognized how we communicate differently, right? And so this is year 3 or 4, right? And for me, I want to deal with whatever the challenge is right here in the moment. Let's get it out. Let's deal with it. Let's get the plan of action. Let's move to, accomplishment. Daa'Iyah, on the other hand, she doesn't want to address it in the moment, because if she addresses it in the moment, some things are going to be said that she doesn't want to say or can't take back if said. Right. And in that moment, in that trip, in that blow up conversation, is where we recognized how we communicate differently. And that communication still exists today, because I still want to deal with it in a moment, because 9 times out of 10, I do not have the ammunition to deal with it later. And I have put it to the side. I can't remember why I'm angry. I don't really care. So in the moment, I want to take care of it, because I'm loaded.
You locked and loaded.
I'm locked and loaded. I can start, listen out everything and give it
your whole thesis statement.
Exactly. But then, so when she's ready to deal with it, I'm like at the point where she's right, because I have no ammunition. I have no idea what she's, why we're even having a conversation.
She's what?
She's right. Right. So,
that's her defense.
That's
right. Yeah. And it's a successful tactic based on my kind of communication style. So it works out in her favor for sure.
No, and that's a good point though, because I think I've been very similar, and you right, like, and just recognizing how your partner communicates differently makes a world of difference, because it's like sometimes it's like, let me just process what I want to say. And it's similar to you, Ralph, you even said, I want to communicate now because I got all my facts locked and loaded of what I want to say, why I feel this way, why I think you're wrong and I'm right. But even just taking the time, when you realize what that tells me is, when she comes back later and it's like, okay, I'm not even mad about it no more. It likely wasn't even something to be that mad about to begin with, right? It's something that you've already reconciled to know this person is not here to harm me. They're not here to intentionally hurt me. So a little bit of time actually may have helped just dissect the situation. So,
but and just to be clear, our time, we're not talking days here, because we don't go days without speaking. So if we have a little spat in the morning and I'm like, okay, I need a minute. We're not going to talk about this now, because you don't fight fair when you're mad.
Right.
And I don't want to end up telling you, you're just like so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. And then they say some stuff you can't take back. So let me say this. I won't fight fair when I'm mad. So give me a minute to let me gather my thoughts, and then I can come back and we'll talk about it. And about 80 to 90% of the time at that point, he's so over it. That's frustrating too. But he's just like, oh, okay. But then he'll allow me to say how I feel. And then okay, here's what we'll do going forward.
Right.
I try not to fight when I'm mad, because it won't be. My mouth can be a little bit.
It can.
I'll choose violence. So I try to be mature and wait about this so we can have a healthy marriage.
See, them people gonna think I get hurt behind closed doors. You say you choose violence earlier in the conversation. You're talking about.
Don't tell them.
We don't want to. We not endorsing that. We don't believe that that's happening.
Not that
Ralph, mouth help. Just blink twice.
Blink a few times. Just couple clicks over the microphone.
So I guess the only question, like one of the other follow-up questions though, when you are identifying when you talk about Daa'Iyah, how you recognize even him telling you to calm down, or Ralph, when you recognize the differences in communication, right? I think even as you are processing it, You're trying to figure out, well, it's like a tug of war. It's like, am I crazy for thinking this, or is this person really coming at me? Or with Daa'Iyah's specific example of telling when she says that you would tell her to calm down, right? I think it's a little bit of a tug of war of like, well, no, I'm gonna speak up because ain't nobody gonna silence me. Or am I just crazy? Am I overreacting, right? So at what point, I'm assuming, right, there was a point where you had to feel comfortable enough to say, this actually, when you say calm down, it makes me feel like this. And I don't know if this is if this is actually what you meant by it, right? But this is how I feel when you say it, because I actually feel like it's silencing me, right? At what point do you actually communicate how this makes his comment makes you feel, right? And so that y'all can kind of change the trajectory, or he helps you understand that calm down doesn't mean silence you. It just is my way to chill. You know what I mean?
That's a mature question. and I would say in the early days, we did not have that mature perspective, right? Certainly I was coming from the position of I'm right. I'm sometimes mostly always right. And there is no reason why I should be wrong, right? So why is she not seeing it my way?
Right.
Right. And, so therefore I wasn't listening. So she wasn't being heard, which then perpetuated more frustration. And we got to a place of maturity where, I have a perspective, right? So does she. Although we live in the same space, we have similar backgrounds. That don't mean that we see things in the same manner.
Right.
Right. And once I got that recognition or that realization of the different perspectives and a different way to slice and dice things, and I'm not always right. That the statement says I'm sometimes mostly always right. Once I gained that perspective, that's when it allowed us to have better difficult conversations to say, okay, I now see where you're coming from in this example of the, cool your soul, right? It was my statement was cool your soul, because it's all over your face. It's in your energy. It's in your tone. That's not what I'm coming for. That's not the energy that I was coming at you with. Why are you responding in that energy?
Yeah.
So that was my intention, right? It was just, okay, let's get to a level place where we can have a conversation. Right. Because I know I'm triggered, right? We're talking about triggers. I know I'm triggered. If you get hype, I'm going to get hype. And then we all hype.
Right.
Right. And that's not a good place to be. Right. So it was certainly a maturing state where learning ourselves, our own communication style, if I may, love, ourselves, our own communication style, and, what are the triggers for us to help put them in check as we have conversations, and to be able to voice, I hear what you're saying. Please acknowledge that that's a trigger for me, or, I feel some kind of way when we say this, or when we do this, or when we, whatever, so that they, your partner, my love here, understands what I'm going through in the moment of having the conversation.
Right. And that's so good, because like you say, it takes a level of maturity. It takes a level of knowing yourself well enough. It takes a level of self-awareness. It takes a level of paying attention to your partner. Like, because again, at that point, she had not maybe all the way verbalized to you how it was making her feel, but you were able to pick up on her nonverbal cues. This is not normal Daa'Iyah, right? And so I think that's so important, because we talk about in the Oasis space of having the courageous but compassionate conversations. It is having the courage to say, look, this does not make me feel good. Or when you respond this way, this makes me feel this way. But it's having enough compassion for yourself to advocate for yourself, but also having the compassion to share with your partner, this is how I'm perceiving it. And I have to believe that this is not what you mean by it, but this is how I'm perceiving it, right? So let's talk about it. And I love how you kind of broke that down and say, look, we at a level 10 right now. I'm seeing your facial expressions. I'm seeing your body language. How do we get here so we not both on hype level, right? How do we get back to a level space? And I really, really love that.
I think what you said earlier too, Patrice, in this relationship, this person doesn't intentionally want to hurt me. And if I can look through that lens, if I can come from that perspective, then I can be more open. I can share perspectives. I can be more vulnerable because I truly believe that this person doesn't want to hurt me.
Right.
And we might have conversations that are tough, right? But those are intended for growth as a couple.
Right.
Those are intended for, bettering the relationship. Those are not intended to intentionally, open wounds.
Yeah, right. And so I think I love that, and it leads right into a good last question, because as we've been talking, right, I think you all have sprinkled in wonderful examples of, so listen, like a lot of times in relationships, we only identify the red flags. We don't identify the green flags, the ones that say, go, this is great, this is healthy, it's safe to keep proceeding, it's safe to let down the walls here, it's safe to be loved by this person and receive it. And y'all have sprinkled in so delicately and nicely some very good examples of green flags. But I think for the average listener, I would love to just call out a few green flags that you all have identified as you all were dating, or even, even as you continue progressing in your relationship and your marriage. What are some green flags? And it's going to look different for different people and their unique relations. But I think there are some common green flags that can be something to look out for, that says, okay, this is good. We can keep going here. We can inch a little closer. What are a few that you all think of?
I think one of the things that got me early on was consistency. He was consistently kind and attentive to me. When we first started dating, I remember even now, he never calls me. If you hear him call me Daa'Iyah, that's because we're in a room full of people, he can't get to me. He always calls me either love or darling. And so I remember one of our friends said early on, like, oh, that's because y'all early in y'all dating. That's going to change. And it hasn't. 13 years later, that's what he always calls me. Even our son asked him, he's like, Daddy, why do you always call mommy love?
Aww.
And his thing is, he does it, he said, because it also reminds him in those moments where we're having disagreements that I am his love and he still loves me.
Yes.
So consistency was important for me. That allowed me to know I could depend on him. And I knew from day one, he consistently showed me kindness, he was concerned. That was one of the things for me. I'm not going to take the whole question.
I thought you were going to take the whole question. Communication, right? Certainly communication. You heard in our story from day one how communication played, it's a significant role, or a pivotal role even. And not just to that point, not just the surface communication, but digging deep. Which, if you dig deep, that means you have to be vulnerable. So that'll be a number 2 for me. Being vulnerable and recognizing, like we just said, that this person across from me, be it my friend, be it my my spouse, be it my sibling, doesn't intentionally want to hurt me, right? And as a result, I can be a little bit more open. I can be a little bit more transparent. I can be a little bit more vulnerable.
Respect.
So,
and that might seem easy because, okay, think some respect. Respect to me, not only did he have respect for me, but he respected my family. When we met, I was taking care of my mom. And I told him then, we are a package deal. He lived with you in Fairfax. I was in Woodbridge. I'm like, I'm not able to come to Fairfax at any given time because I have my mom. I'm not just going to leave her. He was okay with that from the very beginning and helped me to take care of my mom until she moved away. My sister did. So he respected my family, and that meant a lot to me. He never tried to, like, oh, why we got to take care of mama? And then we could have been on a date. We could have been on a trip.
Right.
And that for me was a big deal. And the people that I love and the people that were important to me became important to him.
Yeah. I love that. What is that? You good, Ralph?
Oh, no, I was just shaking my head up and down. Yeah, no, I mean, my perspective on that was, again, I come from a place of, everybody's at 100. So if they're important to Daa'Iyah, I mean, they must be amazing people.
Right.
Right. So I definitely just, you call them, Uncle somebody, I'm going to call them Uncle somebody too, because they were important to you that way. So I showed them the same respect towards that end.
Yeah, I love that. This has been such a good conversation. I know it's one that could go on for multiple episodes because it's so much that I think people experience, like I say, in that transition phase. But I think, to kind of tie it up in a bow of what all you all said is, one, you all were open and you were ready. You were ready to receive the potential of a good relationship. You both had been in a good space to receive. You had done the work on yourselves. And it shows. You were ready to have the tough conversations. Y'all was being grown out there. Like, even before some of the maybe actual like age hit, you all were having the tough conversations and you were making the commitment. And that's so important. I think, again, sometimes when we transition from those phases, we focus so much on identifying the red flags that we don't see the green flags, right? The things that are telling us that this is okay. It's our way of protecting ourselves, right? Like, well, I'm not going to let myself get in another piss poor relationship, or I'm not going to get duped again. What you say, a doozy? I'm not going to end up with another doozy. Mm-hmm. So let me just see if he's doing this, without seeing all the other green flags. So I think that is really important that we highlighted that. So again, thank you all. I like to end my episodes with rapid value questions that just add some additional cherry on top for the listeners. So y'all ready? It's 4 questions. You don't both have to answer if you want. If you want to ping pong them back and forth, you can. The last question y'all both answer. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
All right. First question is, what is one thing that you like to do to sustain or reset your peace?
Ooh, travel.
I was going to say, you mean together?
I mean, if you want to answer together, sure.
Yes. I would say, I was going to say spend time together. Like, whatever we do together.
Sweet. Woo, woo, woo. I love it. Okay. Question number 2. Name one book or song that's helped you to define peace.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to have the word peace in it. It's just whatever has helped you define peace.
So our Never Too Much would be the song.
Never Too Much by Luther?
That's our jam.
Yes. I love that song.
That's our jam.
That's our, never too much, right? And regardless of what it is never too much, right?
Yes. Was that one of y'all winning songs?
It should have been. I don't know why. But
even now, we'll be like, how much you love me? And it's never too much.
Oh, that's cute. I love that. Okay. Question number 3. How do you define peace for yourself now?
So me personally, peace for myself is not entering situations or relationship that cause me stress or anxiety. So being secure in whatever I enter into.
Yes.
And as part of my relationship with Daa'Iyah would be making sure we are good, not complacent, but good. Like, am I still like putting a smile on your face every day? And if not, then let's have that conversation and figure out what I need to do in order to put that smile on your face.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. So let's see. Okay. We're good. Next question.
No, you got it. Yeah.
Okay. Peace for me, I think I feel peace when I feel love. And I mean that in the sense of unconditional love. I know my family's good. Everything is good. The kids are good as can be. We're healthy.
There can do no wrong in my eyes. Okay.
Okay.
That out there.
Okay. But like, just, I'm at peace when everything is, our home is filled with love. My family's filled with love. That kind of stuff brings me peace. He knows I'm a little bit disheveled if I feel like something's not going on or we're not getting along. And not just with him, anybody in my family. Right. So love and peace kind of means the same thing.
Yes, I love it. So this is the very last question. It's a fill in the blank. There are 3 blanks. The first one is easy, though. It'll be your name. So it's my name is blank, and without peace, I'd probably be blank, but with peace, I am blank.
My name is Daa'Iyah. Without peace, I'd probably be crazy, but with peace, I have joy.
Yes, love it.
My name is Ralph, and without peace, I'd be wilding out.
Oh Lord.
But with peace, I am centered.
Yes, yes.
With children.
I love it. Thank you both so much for gracing us in the Oasis space and the Peace Pursuits community. I love y'all so much.
Thank you. We love you
Love
too.
you too.
All right. Okay, so didn't I tell y'all that was going to be such a good episode? I hope you were writing your notes because I just love those two. I think they have such amazing energy and you can feel the love when you talk to them. They silly, let's be clear, but that's one of the things that I love about them because they are so authentically them. And, you know, even as Daa'Iyah was explaining how she was asking all of these tough questions, I think Ralph said it was about 1 million questions she asked on the first day. Like, sis did not waste no time, okay? And they recognized, both of them, she recognized, hey, I have to ask these tough questions if I want different results. And similarly, Ralph recognized, which is something I really love, that, you know, this is a pivotal moment here. It's like that piece in the road where you turn left or you turn right. Do I tell the truth in response to this question? Or can I make up something? Because, I mean, listen, I just met this lady. What do I necessarily have to lose? But I think for him, it's what can I also gain if I try something different, right? And I really love how he acknowledged that maybe in some of his previous relationships, he would have avoided those conversations. Those types of topics would be avoided in relationships just to make it feel like things are going smooth, right? And how often do we do that? We avoid the hard topics to kind of create this facade of a blissful relationship, but we're really not getting to the root of a lot of things, right? It's really very surface level, but Ralph acknowledging that, hey, I need to actually respond to these questions and I don't got nothing to lose if this lady leaves, because that helps you know whether this is a person that's going to be there in the long run or not. And so I really love that they both acknowledge that even if it was going to be uncomfortable for both of them asking or responding to the questions, that it was something that was necessary for them. I also love how they just talked about communicating their triggers. And, you know, I think sometimes we don't even recognize what our triggers are until they flare up in these relationships. But I love how they were able to communicate how this is something that is bothering me. I don't know what you mean by it, but this is how it makes me feel. And then lastly, you know, I thought it was so important to highlight the green flags. Like I mentioned earlier, we focus so much, particularly when we have been in relationships that seem to be toxic or unhealthy relationships. We are so keen on not experiencing that hurt or that pain or that toxicity again, that we tend to focus only on the red flags. Like, oh, well, if they do this, then I'm out. If they do this, this is a deal breaker. But what are the green flags, right? Because again, if we want to live a life that is embodying peace, that's going to transform that conflict to peace, we have to start reframing our minds to think in the mindset of the positive outcomes versus the negative. So what do the green flags in these relationships look like instead of immediately identifying the red flags? Not to say those aren't important, but I think we don't place enough emphasis sometimes on the green flags as well. And so I love how they shared some of the common green flags that may exist in a relationship that tells you to go, but even more specifically to theirs that showed up, and how consistency and respect was so important for them, and how they were able to recognize that this was a relationship they wanted to continue proceeding forth with. And so, I mean, again, so many good nuggets in this. And so you have listened to this episode, and I would love for you all to identify, you know, what are some green flags in your relationships, right? Because maybe you are in a scenario where you're in a new relationship, trying to navigate a new relationship, and it doesn't matter the age, but maybe you are navigating this relationship where you're trying to identify hey, I've been hurt and I don't want to be hurt again, whatever the case may be. And this doesn't have to just be applicable to romantic relationships. It very much applies to friendships, family relationships, work relationships, whatever. But when we go through these traumatic events, again, we always want to call out the things that hurt us or were disruptive to us. But can you identify some green flags in these relationships, right? Write them down, and that'll help you decide, should I proceed forth with this job? Should I proceed forth with this romantic relationship? Should I proceed forth with this friendship? Or are there the red flags outweighing the green significantly, right? And I think that's how you determine as well how you proceed, how you move forward, and it helps you determine how to transform that conflicts into peace. So if you've identified some green flags, share it with me, drop it in the comments of the episode, send me a DM. I would love to know what some green flags you've identified to help you know, hey, this is safe to proceed. I'd also love for you, just like I say, send me a DM or an email. I love to hear your takeaways. If you have additional questions, because you're like, well, Patrice, I think this was such a good episode, but I have a couple of more questions that I think I have. Let me know if you have a question, if you have an idea for an episode, what have you. And of course, something that I love to ask you all to do is to rate and review these episodes or this podcast in general. It really helps others to find the podcast. You know, if you think it's been valuable to you, then I love to believe that it would be valuable to someone else. And so please rate and review so other people, when they are searching this mass web, world wide web, they can find this podcast as well. And similarly, share it with someone that you think may find this to be helpful. Do not hoard all of this good information for yourself. And then lastly, one thing I always, I don't want to say always, but one thing that I think a lot of people don't know is that you can work with me a little more closely, a little more intimately. And I am happy to provide you all with a free discovery consultation if that's something that you're interested in. So go ahead and just click the link in the show notes and we can discuss what it is that you may need some additional assistance with, how you may empower yourself to transform conflict into peace. I'd love to work with you. So just contact me using the link in the show notes. Until next time, you all, I want you to live your best life and embody peace without ever compromising your authentic identity. Love, light, and especially peace. Later, y'all.